Welcome back to Mediaite's Press Club. I'm joined now by Colby Hall, founding editor of Mediaite.com. And Colby, thanks so much for coming on the show. How you doing?
Good, Caden. How are you?
I'm good. We are both, I would say, a little bit worse for wear. We had a late night last night covering this debate and a very early morning this morning. How are you feeling? Are you well rested?
I was up at 5:30, tracking the reactions. You know, in our world, the intersection of media and politics, it was fascinating this morning because there was Morning Joe opened at 6 a.m. with some serious hand-wringing. Joe Scarborough, arguably one of Biden's closest media allies and biggest supporters, opened by saying how much he loved Joe Biden and Jill Biden, but sort of said that unless there's a change, Trump will win in 2024. Now, he wasn't clear what the change was. A sudden change in Biden's demeanor and getting younger, which isn't possible. But it was stunning because MSNBC has not been a place for criticism of Biden for the last 3.5, 4 years.
Right. So you had a piece actually, I think a week ago, where you made the case that MSNBC was behaving like Fox News almost in its coverage of Biden, and you singled out Morning Joe as a show that, particularly led by Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, was sort of in the tank for Biden. So to see them turn around now this morning and say that Biden should probably drop out, that's a huge swing.
It is. And to be clear, my criticism at MSNBC wasn't so much about, they're truthful. That's a big distinction, and they deserve credit for that. They just never, ever really promote any dissenting point of view or any criticism of Biden.
Right.
And to their credit, immediately after the debate, which was disastrous for Biden, you saw their big heroes, Joy Reid, Lawrence O'Donnell, Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, to a person, all were saying, yeah, this is no good. This is bad. I mean, they were openly, Nicole Wallace was saying that there's openly talks about shifting candidates. And so credit to them for not gaslighting their viewers and saying, yep, that was bad.
Now, you had a piece that dropped right as the debate ended. And I think you started writing it within 20 minutes of the debate starting because it was so apparent that this was disastrous, potentially fatal for the Biden campaign. And you called on Joe Biden to drop out. Now, I want to take a little bit of a personal victory lap here. I've been saying for a while that Biden is far too old to be running for president, let alone serving as president. You argued in this piece that you weren't there yet, but the debate got you there. Tell us about why you were convinced from last night that Joe Biden should just drop out.
Well, it was just clear right off the bat. And it wasn't really his raspy voice, but that was the first clue. You know, maybe he was sick, maybe he had a cold. It was that he sort of stunningly lost his train of thought and sort of feebly landed on we beat Medicare. And you know, in fairness, he did improve over the course of the debate, and Trump got maybe a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more unhinged, but you get one chance for a first impression. And you know, I've defended unfair mischaracterization of these clips of Biden as cheap fakes because they were unfair, and I stand by that. That said, this White House has clearly been very protective of the president. They've overproduced him. They've kept him out of press conferences and tough interviews, all the while saying that behind closed doors, he's sharp as a tack and is sort of this genius. Well, it was the first time for us to see him in this event, and it was sad. I really felt bad for him because I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't buy into this corrupt narrative. I think he's a laudable person, a civil servant, but it really, I say this in the piece, it felt like elder abuse. It felt like, oh man. And the fact that, he's old, and I think Trump's a con man and duplicitous and a danger to the future of the country, I think those are both symptoms of a larger issue, which I've talked about before, that we have this gerontocracy. Like, is this the best we can do? And so, yeah, I thought that column, with your help and suggestion, was going to land. But as it turns out, I wasn't the only one that had that conclusion. Yeah. Almost every talking head on CNN and MSNBC said, yeah, he should drop out. Fox News was less into it because clearly I think they're delighted to see him stay in the race because he seems unlikely to get reelected if he stays in.
Your piece, which I thought was early on the train and would have really set a tone, ended up being one of many calling on Biden to drop out. You know, the New York Times opinion pages, Thomas Friedman wrote a piece saying that he watched the debate alone in his hotel room in Lisbon and he wept, which is staggering.
He went full Tom Friedman.
He went full Tom Friedman. It's what we expect from him at this point. Nicholas Kristof said that Joe Biden should drop out. Mark Leibovich, who wrote a piece a couple weeks ago that we spoke about on this show, saying that Biden said, time to go, Joe. So there's this mass swell of pressure now on Biden from the media and from liberals in the media on MSNBC to consider dropping out. And I think it makes it particularly shameful that the Biden campaign spent the last couple of months trying to attack and shame anyone that dared question that Biden might not be of full mental and physical fitness. They railed against the Wall Street Journal for publishing a story about his fitness. And now we have him on a debate stage, and now we know what he's like when he's in this format. And it's prompting everyone to call on him to drop out, which is, I think, a pretty shocking development. But what do you make of this media pressure? Do you think it's going to be enough to make any changes here? Or do you think that potentially the Biden campaign sees this as something that they could ride out?
But you made an astute point that I put in the column, and that was that regardless of what happened in this debate and what goes on, the next few weeks and months are going to be sort of the political media coverage is going to be pretty much obsessed with Biden's age.
Well, right. And let me just say, the one thing that I find the most fascinating about this is that I've seen a lot of Biden defenders say, oh, well, Trump is just so terrible. You know, Trump lied. Why isn't anyone talking about Trump lying throughout the debate? And I don't think that those two arguments are in conflict. I think that people that are truly terrified about the potential reelection of Trump have reason to argue that Biden should drop out, because Biden at this point, I mean, if most voters, CNN did a snap poll right after the debate, and it found that 57% of voters do not think that Biden is fit to be president. That is shocking, and I don't know how a candidate like that wins, no matter who is on the other side of the ticket.
Well, I've seen a lot of talk that Biden can turn it around, and I don't know how being stiff and slow and old is a problem that improves with age. Like, gets better over time. Maybe he was sick, and he certainly was much better as the jacked up Joe that we saw at the State of the Union. What shocks me is that our current sort of two-party power structure system, there is no real safeguard. Like, this seems to be entirely a decision of Joe Biden. And, we've long, I think, argued about how the GOP has expressed fealty to Trump. And I think that's legit criticism. But you can now say the same thing about the Democratic Party, who are basically just saying, yeah, I guess, that's, it's up to Joe. Like, what? No. It's too early, I think, to predict who will replace him. I think Kamala will be near the top of the list, even though her, approval ratings are really low. I think, obviously, Gavin Newsom will be near the top, Gretchen Whitmer. But, I saw in Politico that the timeline is 40 days. They have 40 days till like early August before it affects getting names on the ballot. And, I think it would be good for the country, honestly, if both Biden and Trump were to step out and we had some younger, more stable and traditional conservative and progressive Democratic bona fide candidates.
Jonathan Martin in Politico reported this morning that top Democrats are freaking out right now, but they also believe that Biden cannot be persuaded or pushed out of the race. So, I mean, we're in a shocking place right now. It's only going to get crazier. Colby Hall, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Aidan.